Colorado star player, athlete, corner, wide receiver Travis Hunter is one of the best, if not the best, prospect in the 2025 NFL draft class. But what are the best landing spots for him as a receiver and as a corner in the NFL? We'll discuss this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers. Guys, you know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. Well, I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Today's show, we are talking about the man, the myth, the legend, Travis Hunter. What are the best landing spots for him, right? We're going to talk a little bit of cornerback, talk a little bit of wide receiver. What spots do we think he can play both, right? Then we're going to scout possibly the best player in the entire class, with some people are saying pound for pound, the big guy, a lot of pounds, Mr. Mason Graham, the interior defensive lineman from Michigan. And then we're going to do a prospect spotlight to wrap up the show, man. We're going to pick the prospect, put him under a spotlight, have a conversation about him. So we're going to have some fun. DP, let's kick this thing off with the Heisman front runner, Travis Hunter.
This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Travis Hunter, Keith. Nothing about the best landing spots. Like you broke it down. We're gonna talk some corners, some wide receiver, and let's start with wide receiver. Truthfully, like when I think about a wide receiver landing spot and best landing spot form in the 2025 NFL Draft, Keith, I look no further than the New England Patriots. I'm like, man, at 4, like you already have Gonzo. I think their secondary's fine. Defense is okay. You need some help on the offensive side of the ball. We talked about it with Drake May. He's shown the flashes, since he's became the starter for the New England Patriots. But it's the cupboard is either bare or the ingredients aren't seasoned enough. I think that's probably the best way to put it, right? You know, with the young weapons they have, things of that nature, and of course the offensive line. Now, like we illustrated, if you're the Patriots, your best bet is to go through free agency and get some veteran offensive linemen to come in here and fill that and get your best 5, right? You can, day 2, like second, third round, maybe you draft one a guy or two, maybe day 3 as well in the 4th, 5th round. You get yourself some more developmental pieces on the O-line. But at the end of the day, I need to give Travis Hunter a potential wide receiver 1 type of caliber guy, or at least a wide receiver 2, a guy that has athleticism. And one thing, watching Travis Hunter as a receiver, Keith, that I really take into account, and I appreciate this with him, his process as a receiver has improved compared to last year. His release package, his tempo, how he, again, like playing corner and live in real time, that helps him. Like it's not like, okay, I was a corner in high school. Like I'm a corner right now, and I'm a receiver right now. It's helping him and allowing him to attack corners, understanding how to move guys off the spot in the contact window, things of that nature. I think the Patriots offense would benefit a lot from having Travis Hunter as a wide receiver if they were able to get him in the draft.
Yeah, DP, what I'm going to do is I'm going to name off the top 5, right? Because initially when you said New England, I was kind of like, okay, why he went all the way to number 4? But I think important for the listeners to kind of show them why, right? If you look at the draft order, that per Tankathon, the Jacksonville Jaguars are pick number 1. The New York Giants are pick number 2. The Las Vegas Raiders are pick number 3. The New England Patriots are pick 4. And the Carolina Panthers are pick 5. So when you look at this, DP, I think is the Jaguars, or the next 2 is the Giants and the Raiders, right? Which we both, and that's probably why you said this, right? They both need quarterbacks, right? It's like they should go after quarterbacks and find a quarterback for the face of their franchise. And then the next pick is New England. So I think it comes down to New England at this point, right? How it's currently structured, it comes down to Jacksonville, New England, Carolina, right? And none of those are really like flashy spots, right? At the end of the day. But where could he be best utilized? Yeah, I think with the Patriots at the end of the day. I think the Patriots could be a really good spot for him. I think the Carolina situation is interesting. Not Carolina, Bryce Young maybe seems like he's kind of turning the corner some and playing better football. So with getting him another wide receiver, because I think you can see that Xavier Legette is clearly their best wide receiver, right? And it seems like, and it fits because like his athletic profile is dominant compared to the rest of the wide receivers on, and it's showing. I don't know if you feel the same way. Like I think it's obvious that it's
a clear difference when you're talking about movement, explosiveness.
Yeah.
Because at one point, there were some of their fans were saying Jalen Coker, the undrafted, they had him as the wide receiver. They was like, I think Coker is better. I was like, Coker's a slot receiver. Like that's what he is. He doesn't have the athletic profile that you want playing on the outside a lot. Like whenever that Adam Thielen time comes, and this offseason, if Adam Thielen walks off or he retires or goes to a contender in free agency, Jalen Coker can fill that role. But that outside wide receiver one role that you want, no, that's Xavier Legette, right? You traded Jonathan Mingo away. They need to still add some more pieces to this receiver room.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And that's why I look at a guy like Travis Hunter and say maybe he can go there, right? And help Bryce Young out. And
I like that.
So I have a question. Do you think he's playing both sides of the football? Because I think if you take the Jaguars, they need a wide receiver, they need a corner. You take the Patriots, they need a wide receiver, they need a corner. You take the Panthers, they need a wide receiver, they need a corner. Is there any shot that he plays, like you feel like he can play both ways at all of those destinations?
I talked to one of the scouts I talked to. I asked him about this. I said, man, with Travis Hunter willing to be a dual athlete, let's just put not even a dual threat, just dual athlete, you know what I mean, dual position player, like what does that look like in your opinions? The discussions they've had was he only envisions him playing both sides if he comes in as a corner primarily. So it's like, okay, if he comes in as a corner primarily, that's why I think corner-wise, Jacksonville is like the perfect spot for me. Like for him, you put it like I'm cool with him going to play corner with Jacksonville because, like you said, they need cornerback help. He said then you can use him as like your wide receiver 3-4 and have like 20, maybe 25 plays designed for him to come on the field, and like you're keeping him under that, trying to keep him under that 90 at max 90 play per game threshold, keep him under 100, right? Like he's averaging, I think, like 120 in college. Yeah, no, we want to skim that down, way down in the NFL because, you know, these owners are frugal. Like, hey, once we start kicking out millions, we need you to be healthy, big fella. Like, what's the best availability? I mean, what's the best ability? Availability. We don't want you coming in and like trying to do both at a full-time rate. So I think from what I was told, like that's the way that the NFL and some people in the NFL view is like, yeah, if he plays corner, yeah, we can design a situation for you on offense. I think it's a little bit more difficult to say we're going to play you at receiver full-time and then throw you out there corner against these caliber athletes in the NFL. You know what I mean? Like if you're playing the Bengals and you already got 120 yards in the third quarter, but then you got to go flip on the other side and guard Jamar, I don't think that makes sense to me. Just from a situation of you already physically, Jamar has a lot of weight on you. He's more physical and stronger, but he's also fresher than you too because he's only playing one position. So I think that's the situation that it probably looks at most. I think cornerback, like the best landing spot for me, cornerback, Jacksonville. Now I say Jacksonville, if you can't get a trade partner, which I highly doubt you couldn't, I expect the Raiders, the teams that need a quarterback, that absolutely want one in this top 5 to 7. It's like, yeah, no. I mean, when you look at Tankathon, what was it? The Raiders had 3. So, hey, you know what I mean? Like Las Vegas, there's a chance that you could get your quarterback. But just be on the safe side, I would trade. I would still trade up if I was the Raiders, right? You missed a quarterback last year, Keith. You trade up. So if Jacksonville trades down and you got Shador and Cam at pick 1 and 2, and Jacksonville's at 3, yeah, take Travis Hunter and prosper and be happy about it. But also, I will say this. I'm not opposed to Travis Hunter playing wide receiver. Him and Brian Thomas Jr. as a duo full time for Trevor Lawrence. That's a really enticing situation.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with DP. Let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. And what do we have coming up next? We're going to talk about possibly the best player in the entire draft, Mason Graham, the interior defensive lineman from Michigan. We're going to have a conversation about him coming up next.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch or an urge in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. All you need to do is just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, you'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And to get in on the action, that is FanDuel.com to join today. So, guys, never waste a hunch. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Scouting interior defensive lineman, one of the best prospects in this entire class, Mason Graham for those Michigan Wolverines. Michigan is having the season that a lot of people, more so their fan base, wanted them to have. But he's 6'3", 320 pounds, lineman, versatile. He does pretty much everything for this defensive line, right? Like we're watching him command double teams, pull pressure, pull coverage away from his teammates and different things of that nature. And that's why I always like looking at the numbers for him this season, right? 19 hurries, 9 QB hits, 5 sacks on the season, right? A batted pass down also, okay? And that's with 311 pass rush snaps in 11 games. And his pass rush win rate overall, crazy enough, it caught me off guard when I saw it. I was like, 12.2 seems low. But key, though, when you flip to those true drop back sets, there's no play action. It's the quarterback's throwing the ball. There's no worry about the run. 4 of his 5 sacks, 8 of his 9 QB hits, and 13 of his 19 pressures all came on true drop back sets. His pass rush win rate went up to 22%. This guy he's got game record potential, Keith. And I wanted to ask you, your boy, he's balling right now for the Rams, especially on passing downs, Braden Fiske, which we knew that's where he made his money. Like that size. I mean, he's bigger than Mason. I think Braden's 6'6" or whatever. He's like 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah, I think
he's a taller guy. You know what I mean? He's taller, thing being shorter, but like just the ability to get after the quarterback, quickness, hand use, just things like that. Mason Graham, to me, when I look at Mason Graham, I see a shorter, stockier Braden Fiske that's a better run defender because he has the natural leverage and power in his lower halves, and he plays with good leverage and everything to get underneath the pad level of the blockers. Heck, even in the run game, they double team him. Like you got Kenneth Grant, Josiah Stewart, Derek Moore, you got all these talented guys. They still try to double team Mason Graham, and I wonder, Keith. And you tell me how you feel about it. Man, I wonder how early we'll see him off the board. Simply because we just talked about Travis Hunter, right? Got at least 2 quarterbacks off the board, right? Like, I feel like somebody's going to reach for an offensive lineman. I just got a feeling somebody's going to reach for one of these tackles and say, listen, we got to get it. We got to get a guy. Like, but when you look at Braden Fiske, how do you feel about him? How early do you think we may see him? Just right now, it's November, so we still got months before the draft. How early do you think we may hear his name called in the first round?
Yeah, so when you look at him, obviously I think he's a top 10 prospect, right? Probably top 5 overall guy, just as far as his resume and the impact he's had in college football, as far as just his talent in a vacuum, right? But the thing is, like you said, it's going to be slotting team needs, right? When you get to the quarterback conversation, and like you said, you knock out. I don't know if Jacksonville is going to pick him #1 overall because they just went Trayvon Walker, right? And they're still trying to make sure that turns, and they don't want to bring people back to thinking about that. You know what I'm saying? Even though Trayvon is playing good football, but they don't put it back under a microscope, right? For somebody to be right or wrong in that situation. So I don't think Jacksonville is going to take a interior defensive lineman at 1 at this moment. I don't see it. And obviously we still have free agency. Giants and Raiders, y'all in prime position to grab one of the two quarterbacks, right, that everybody feels like
Mm-hmm.
towards the top. The Patriots, I think it's possible, right? The Patriots, they seem like a team that fundamentally they're still gonna, kind of stick with the build the trenches, go with that type of direction. So I can see the Patriots taking them at 4, but they also need offensive line help for Drake May, right? Carolina, I know they got Derek Brown, so I don't know if they would go that. I think it's just difficult because I think any team that grabs Mason is going to be just a clear, like, we just want the interior defensive lineman and the guy we feel like is the best player, right? And just scrap. Like, it's kind of seems like it's kind of going off the traditional flow of the draft, right? Or what we believe the draft will be when you line up positional needs in tandem with, just the draft order at this very moment. So I think as high as 4, but I don't think he's slipping to like 15 or anything like that because I think he's too good of a football player. And in this draft, they got too many question marks once you get past like prospect 10, right?
Good point. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I think to your point, I think the thing about Carolina is so intriguing because they run a base 3-4, base odd front, but they try to run a 4-man pressure on third downs.
Yeah.
So it's like with Derek Brown coming back, they got Ashawn Robinson, who, wily vet from Alabama, who's played good ball, powerful run defender, who showcases some ability to collapse the pocket. I could see him going to Carolina and them just going best player available because like Dan Morgan sitting there like, listen, our cupboard is bare. Like we gotta get something in here to make a difference. And I think the debate for them is going to be, well, we're at 5, right? Like right now, if the draft was today, the Panthers are at 5. They're in prime position for Mason Graham, Abdul Carter, James Pierce Jr., whatever edge rusher they want, really. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because they need an edge rusher too. They after trading Brian Burns, they don't have a go-to young guy.
Edge rusher. Yeah.
They have Jadeveon Clowney, but that's it.
Yep, the corner situation, right? Like you talked about, like that's another issue. JC Horn being healthy, or are they going to trade him, release him? Like what they're going to do with that situation?
They could go tight end again because I think Jatavian Sanders suffered a neck injury.
Yeah, he had
Sunday.
He had a bad like tackle where he kind of fell on his head. Yeah, so he can be out, and then
that could be tricky, man. You know what I mean? We could we pray for the best for him and hope the best for him, but those neck injuries are very tricky in the NFL, right? And it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to even get like if you have a neck injury, it's hard to get a team to clear you because of the fact of it could be a liability and things, and they could be held accountable, things of that nature. So like it may be a situation where it takes longer for him to recover. So it's like, okay, well, if we're going to lose him for potentially just saying like, as hypothetically a year, then you look at Colston Lovely, you look at Tyler Warren, you look at just getting Bryce Young more pieces. Cause I think over these last 3 weeks since being benched, Bryce Young has come out and basically played to a level that said we don't have to draft a quarterback. Like just build around me, and we'll see where we go from there. And I think that's why the Panthers could be in the best player available spot, which make Mason Graham, very intriguing. Because again, like you think about even just an interior duo, because Derek Brown can rush the passer as well, and he's really good at it. Now you got him at kind of that one tech, and then you put Mason Graham at that 2I3 opposite of him. You talking about collapsing the interior like 100%, right? And especially if you keep building, and I think they should have some money in the offseason too, the Panthers, to go out and get some pieces. I think they have some cap space. I think especially after losing, not losing, but got rid of DJ Moore's contract, got rid of CMC's contract, got rid of Brian Burns and stuff like that. I could see them. I think I'm looking it up right now, but like
I think it's 46 million. They have 46 mil.
So yeah, if you got 46 mil entering, like you should be good. You know what I mean? Like you got anything north of 30 heading into the free agency period, that doesn't even account for somebody getting extensions like a JC Horn and restructures and all that. So they should be fine. I think that's like you said, you said 4 as early as 4. I said 4 to 9. No, 4 to 10. Because Cincinnati needs an interior defensive lineman. They need to make sure they keep Trey Hendrickson, but they need an interior defensive lineman as well, Keith. And if you think about if you can keep Trey Hendrickson, you got Miles Murphy, who they need to figure out how do you get him on the field so he can develop? You know what I mean? Yep. Like, you drafted him first round. Let's get him on the field. I know Sam Hubbard is solid, but this young man has a higher ceiling as a pass rusher. Get him on the field. If you can keep that core, and you talking about putting Mason Graham on the interior defensive line lined up next to Trey Hendrickson, yeah, Lamar Jackson got to deal with that. Whoever's under center in Cleveland got to deal with that. Probably Jameis Winston. You know what I mean? Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, whoever's in Pittsburgh, you got to deal with that when they can rush those type of guys off the same side. So I think Mason Graham, like you said, top 5 type of player, Keith, impact player. I'm excited for his NFL future where he can go to a defensive room and he's not the best guy, so that he doesn't get the double teams and the slide protection. And it allows him to just go out there and dominate. That's what I'm seeing from Braden Fiske. You can't just pick a guy on that defensive line for the Rams to the double. No. If you double him, you got Byron Young and Jared Verse, who are speed to power, explosive guys upfield, just collapsing their hands into the chest of your tackles. And you got Kobe Turner. So it's like you got to pick your poison in a sense. That's what I want from Mason Graham, to have that type of room where he could just go out there, get some one-on-ones, and really take off as a player.
Yeah, I agree. DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. What are we about to do? We're about to do prospect spotlight, man. We're going to pick the prospect. We're going to put him under the spotlight, have a conversation about him heading into this is the last week of college football. Yeah, this is the last week.
Regular season.
Last regular season week of college football. So we're about to have some fun. So make sure y'all stay tuned. Prospect spotlight coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. But it's not just your favorite teams. Concerts, comedy shows, shows in general, Game Time has it. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. What else do I love about Game Time? They show the views for all the seats in the venue, so before you buy your ticket, you know what vantage point you or your party will have. They also have lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. Keith, prospect spotlight. I went a deep dive because I looked at the schedule and I said, man, Ashton Jeanty faces Oregon State. And I was like, this ain't the same Oregon State type of team we saw 2 years ago, where they had NFL talent just loaded on both sides of the ball, defensively, all that type of stuff like that. I said, but there's got to be, like, I just went and looked at their roster, watched some tape. They have a linebacker that is he's going to be needed, Keith. Melvin Jordan IV. He's 5'11", 225. He might be, I think he's one of their tackle leaders and everything. 27 run stops on the season. So, like, he triggers downhill well. He runs the lane well, fills running lanes well. And I think it's only like a 2-inch difference in height between him and Ashton. Ashton's 5'9", he's 5'11". What's the hardest thing to do trying to tackle a short running back? Leverage. You know what I mean? When you're 6'1", trying to get low, drop your hips, and fire off, if he's got the full head of steam, he's running through it. You know what I mean? It just is what it is. And he's done that multiple times this year. Well, Melvin, for Melvin's sake, he has the height. He's in that height range where it's like, I don't have to drop my pad level super low and be uncomfortable. He's going to be needed, man. Like, at the end of the day, like Boise State, and I'm going to say this now, Keith, Boise State gets in the playoffs. I have a very strong feeling they're going to get, like, just blown out. Like, I don't foresee it going well for them, because that passing offense is not good. It's Ashton Jeanty or bust. And you've benefited from playing in the Mountain West, where if Ashton Jeanty is getting off to a slow start, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Yeah. But right now, they're projected to potentially play Ohio State. Keith, I'm telling you right now, if they see Ohio State round 1 or just period, it's a wrap. Like, if Ashton Jeanty gets off to a slow start, Will Howard and Mecca Ibuka and Jeremiah Smith will have 28 points before halftime. And if that's the case, then you take Ashton Jeanty out the game. But I think, like, Melvin needs to be the best player for Oregon State's defense. He has to be the best player in the box. You got to fill the run lanes, man. You got to be patient, because if you're not patient, what's the phrase? Your favorite phrase, Keith, with linebackers? Slow until you know. You better be slow until you know, because Ashton Jeanty is a patient runner who will absolutely one-cut you, get north and south, and just the contact balance is elite, man. The strength in his frame, because he's got that low center of gravity, that bowling ball type of build. Now, you got to stop him before. I put that in my report. You got to stop him before he builds up momentum. If you can get him in the backfield or meet him at the line of scrimmage, that's your best bet, because once he passes the threshold, it's hard to slow him down and everything. Key. So Melvin Jordan the fourth, 5'11", 225 from Oregon State, needs to be their best player on defense.
Yeah, DP, I'm gonna go with. I like your name pool. I'm going with a big name, DP. I'm going with the name Carson Beck for Prospect Spotlight. Reason being is this, right? That Georgia is still on the brink of making the college football playoffs, right? They're still sitting there with everything right there in front of them to be able to do what they have to do. The issue is, and I think they're already in the SEC championship, right? I believe so. I think
so.
Georgia's already locked in, and then I think it's up to Texas A&M, the winner of Texas A&M, I believe. But you're sitting there, DP, and you're looking at this situation, and I'm talking about them going against Georgia Tech, a Georgia Tech defense that has given quarterbacks problems, right? It gave Cam Ward a couple shakes, and Cam Ward has been much more consistent than what Carson Beck has. So nice. I'm wondering if Georgia Tech and their defensive coordinator being able to roll and show different coverages gives Carson Beck a problem, right? The other side of that is that, hey, if Carson Beck is playing good football, Georgia is a top 3 team in the country, right? Like when they're rolling and they're playing really good football, like that game we seen against Tennessee, and that looked like the very best of Georgia, or the half we seen against Texas, like that's the very best of Georgia. So I'm looking at that, because I think we always say this with quarterbacks, right? But I think it's literally it's not like the past where Georgia, I think, was good enough to where Stetson Bennett, to where like the team can carry Stetson Bennett. I think this Georgia team, Carson Beck has to be good enough to be able to carry the team at moments, right? And so that's what I'm going to be looking for, talking about a prospect spotlight, just to see what version of Carson Beck shows up. Because I think if he shows up good and he plays well throughout the playoffs, Georgia has a shot at winning the national championship. And then we got to go back to the drawing board when it comes to ranking quarterbacks.
100%. That's what I said. It's better. It all matters how you. It's not how you start. It's how you finish. If Carson Beck finishes this season on a heater, like the conversations from mid-season, the beginning of the season, everybody saying that they were completely out. Those conversations, people deleting tweets.
Yep. You ain't got no choice but to be back in.
You got to be back in, because he's playing good ball, and that's going to be a big game, because like you said, Georgia Tech's defense has been good this year. They have 19 sacks on the season, 18 QB hits, about 90 pressures, and keep your eye on this young man, because he gets after the quarterback. I think he's their leading sack guy right now, a leading pressure guy. Yes, Romello Hyatt, 6'3", 240. He's supposed to be, I think he's a senior in this draft class. He leads them with 20 pressures on the season. True dropback sets, he gets after the quarterback, 19% pass rush win rate. Yeah, against an offensive line for Georgia that just has been one of the worst that we've seen in terms of collective talent, especially on the ends at tackles over the last 5 to 8 years, truthfully. I think if Carson Beck, like I like that big name pool, Keith. Carson Beck needs to, and I said it 2 weeks ago after the Tennessee game. All right, Carson, stack weeks, baby. Just stack weeks. Because I've never really been out. I stuck with my Jared Goff comp, and I'm sticking with it. Just stack weeks, right? Like he had a good game last week.
The baddest part of the Jared Goff and Derek Carr experience, right? So if you play, it's like that's part of the experience. That's what you get, right? You get both sides of it. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listener is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. And guys, happy holidays. I know it's Thanksgiving. Y'all have a good, just enjoy football. Got a lot of football on Friday, Saturday, and even Sunday.
Yep.
Enjoy yourself. Go buy some stuff for Black Friday. Go have some fun, man. Just go have some fun. But on tomorrow's show, like Keith already alluded to, this is week 14. The end of the regular season for college football. So you know that we're previewing all of that. Cade Klubnik, Clemson quarterback, got a big game this weekend, big game at home. So we're going to talk about him as a statement player on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.